going to start with Stephen, so I hope you have a long time. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jimmy Rees. I'm the youngest living child of Patricia Byrne. I guess since Dawana was not available, and I'm the youngest living child, I've been given this honor of delivering the eulogy. And you can ask about Dawana later. Each of us knows my mom in a different way, and our experience with her varied. My plan is to tell you about a few observations, memories, and why I think she was just a remarkable person. I hope that by doing this will highlight how Patricia was impactful to all her children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, her friends, and the world. So last night, after a family get-together, and a family get-together is pretty chaotic, especially when you have a lot of the family together. I stumbled, I started to write this eulogy, and I stumbled over my words quite a bit. I actually scoured the internet looking for examples or thoughts that I could incorporate. I thought about all the things that my mother loved and the type of person she was, but everything sounded pretty cheesy. So in my frustration, I sat back and I started to observe her children and her grandchildren and some of the great-grandchildren that surrounded me. And I sat listening, and I began to think about Mom and the amazing impact she's had on our world. Immediately, I was connected to her, and I thought about her, and she knew how to write. She knew how to tell a story. And she seldom worried about what other people thought about her if she was doing the right thing. And so here it goes. Mom cared about God, her family, and loving others. It didn't matter if you were a relative or someone she just met. She loved you and she wanted to help you. And when I was a child, I would often wake up or come home from school to a new baby in the house. Now, I was one of the younger ones, so they weren't my siblings. They were foster children. I didn't know at the time, but Mom was an emergency foster care parent, and she would often take in babies that needed a safe place to stay for a few days. I remember her telling me that God needed us to help others, and that these babies and their parents needed us. I remember her praying with us and teaching us how to pray and teaching us about Jesus. I especially like the memories when Mom and Dad would gather us all together, and this was frequently, gather us all together and we'd pray as a family. It's one of the few times we were actually allowed in the living room. And so, the living room in our house was the only nice room. And we'd all get down on our knees together and we'd pray. And that had a great impact on me and I think most of my siblings. We went to church every Sunday, and as we got older, it was a struggle to get us all to go to church. And not only did we go to church, we dressed up to go to church. And we had to stay dressed up until after church for family dinner on Sunday. And I have my grandson roaming here. I can't imagine keeping him in a coat and tie until after Sunday dinner. It wasn't until I was a parent of 3 that I realized how difficult that task was. But Mom pulled it off. And those dinners were wonderful. I have wonderful memories of Mom teaching us how to be respectful of others. I'm grateful for all they did for us. The milkman, the mailman, the garbage man, and others were honored for their support of our family. I also remember Mom encouraging my imagination. I can remember the kitchen chair that we would sit in would become a spaceship, and and I would have great journeys and great adventures, never leaving the kitchen. When we first moved to Louisiana, I remember her lessons on not judging others by the color of their skin or their abilities. She encouraged us to be friends with all good people. I don't know how I became friends with Bride. And she started one of the first Cub Scout packs here that welcomed both black and white boys. As her children aged and began to have friends that needed help, she was there for them as well. Seems like one of us was always bringing home someone that needed help, and she always was there to lend a helping hand. Whether you need a place to stay for a few days, or a few dollars, until payday, she would do all she could, and she never asked questions. Also, the security of her children was immense. The security that we had. We always knew that if Mom had a place to live, so did we. And so we were really happy when she moved in with Stephen and Molly. When I was in high school, my mom went back to college and graduated with honors. Now that wasn't a great deal for me, because I was like a year behind her, and I was far from having honors. At the same time, somehow she got into prison ministry, and at Angola. And Angola, as many of you know, is not a fun place. And she'd bring these trustees in from Angola to stay with us at our house, so that they could go to the local schools and churches to talk about the challenges of drugs and alcohol. And some of these men remained close friends with my mom. We're always grateful to her for taking a chance on me. When her youngest children were ready to move out to college, Ricky and I, my mom came to us, and she wanted to talk to us about an idea she had of a way that she could help somebody that needed her. The state had approached her about taking a young woman named Jeanette who was blind and developmentally disabled. Jeanette was my age. And Mom wouldn't do it unless she had our support, since we were the youngest. And I remember saying, well, I'm leaving, and so you can do whatever you want. And Ricky welcomed Jeanette into the house. And Mom took Jeanette in, and she lived with Mom and became a part of our family for over 20 years. I think that by having Jeanette, it made her children, or at least I can speak for myself, it made me become even more aware and accepting of those that are differently able than we are. So I guess the fabric of my mom's life is love and service to others. The impact of how she lived and the lessons she taught all those around her will influence the world for generations. I don't think there's any better way to close than to share. Well, I really do like the homework, Father. And I think that homework should be a daily assignment. A scout is helpful. Do a good turn daily. I don't think there's any better way to close than to share one of my mom's last directive to us. Hold on to God and never forget love.